Yes, this is DJ.
I'm Jeff Wilson.
Hey guys, Andy Broom, Vice President of CGC Cards.
Hey, this is Jason Howard.
Yo, I'm Q Harrison.
Hey gang, this is Tom Verrilli. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Whatnot.
This is Teapot from Sports Card Investor.
This is Adam Rips with V-Friends.
What's up? This is Aaron from Slab Stocks.
Hey, this is Clark from 5 Card Guys and the Cards to the Moon podcast.
Hey guys, this is Jay with Wild Card.
What's up everyone? This is Duke Dodson from Graybos.
What's up everybody? This is Chris Kelsey from Nash Cards.
What's up everyone? This is Mark Hill from My Card Post.
This is Ray Schulte.
This is Chase Krim.
This is Cody from Texas Roadshow Shop.
This is Mark Aaron from WSB Radio in Atlanta, and you're listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show.
I'm loving the content.
Loving the content here.
I'm loving the content here on the Sports Card Strategy Show.
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 And I'm telling you, the Sports Card Strategy Show.
This is the Sports Card Strategy Show with your man, Paul Hickey. What's good?
Be sure to subscribe for year-round advice on keeping your portfolio up to date.
Part of the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network, the #1 place for advice on how to make money flipping sports cards. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, there is no off-season.
There is no off-season.
There is no off-season.
And there's no off-season.
You already know, there is no off-season.
No off-season!
All right, you ready to rock?
Ready to go.
When you get into this game, the reason why you pay someone like Paul Hickey to get your sports card strategy together is because sometimes when you're starting out, you need perspective, you need wisdom, you need insights. And so he's been around the track enough times where he can actually coach you up and guide you. Doesn't mean he's going to take you to the promised land tomorrow, but you now have a coach by your side that can advise and kind of even create these pathways where you can get the education yourself. And that's a lot better than thugging it out on your own. Thugging it out on your own.
What? The kids better buy my rookie card now, cause after this year the price ain't coming down.
Welcome in everybody. I'm your host, Paul Hickey. It's time to sit back, listen, learn, and earn with me on the Sports Card Strategy Show.
What's up? Wow, we are head first, face in, and here is the first curveball of today's episode. You are not going to be spending today with the one and the only Paul Hickey, Dave Ramsey of Sports Cards. It's a Mofa Joe, Lefty, McKee takeover today, February 3rd, 2025. Paul's got to be out today, and we are here to deliver a strong dose of Sports Card Strategy Show content. Part of the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network. Mofa Joe making what I believe is his first public appearance on an official show. I think he may have done some show and tells or something about that at one point. But Mofa Joe in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, give him some love in the chat. Mofa Joe, what are you doing today, bro? How are you feeling?
I feel good, man. I feel good. Got up super early and just wanted to make sure I was prepared for whatever lefty curveball you threw at me. So
yeah, baby. You know those lefty curveballs are coming at you hot as Jaime Corona says. That's a Maddox curveball, baby. That means it's good. It means it's good. All right, Mofa Joe, we've got an action-packed show ready for you guys, full of things like hobby news. We've got wins and losses of me and Mofa Joe. We're even going to do a gauntlet today as well. We've got some videos on some recent Topps releases. We've got things like public releases. We've got things like big NBA trade news and how that's going to affect the card market. I thought we were only just going to talk about one NBA trade, and then another big trade comes out yesterday. We'll get to that in a minute. There's the NFL playoffs, the big announcements coming this week for different awards in play or in the NFL, which I believe will affect cards, and we're going to talk about that as well. We've got some cards that are in the raw to grade strategy that we love, and some different ROI investment opportunities there. And then in the meantime, you're just going to get a little bit of Mofa Joe and I's personality. And ladies and gentlemen, I've got to share how I met Mofa Joe. So this man has many names. He's, I've known him first as Farmer Joe, because Paul gives me a call out of nowhere one time. He's at Culture Collisions, I believe. Is that where y'all met the first time?
Yeah, it was like 2020,
maybe 2023.
2023, yeah.
He calls me out of nowhere and he's like, bro, just had a massive deal on an awesome Tyrese Maxey card that this guy Farmer Joe and he says it like I'm supposed to know who Farmer Joe is, and I guess he just figures I'm from Texas and I'm country, so all farmers know each other, and so he's like, you got to know this Farmer Joe guy, who then later on I figure out is Mosaic Joe on Instagram. And so I have come up with Mofa Joe as his affectionate nooffseason.com nickname. And it's low-hanging fruit. It was so easy. It was right in front of us. So Mofa Joe is in the house with us tonight. But last year at the National, Turner and I were going to sacrifice our pride and sleep in the same queen size bed to save some money at the National. And so Turner and I, are like, got a pillow in between us for a barrier, and Paul, is over there in his comfy bed. And then he goes, Mofa Joe, or he says Mosaic Joe, which I said, Farmer Joe, ? And he's like, yeah, that Joe. He's going to be staying with us too. And I was like, oh man, you guys are going to get cuddly over there. And he goes, nah, he's sleeping on the floor. And so Mofa Joe sleeps on the floor in our hotel room, and there's a lot of snoring going on, but he doesn't hear any of it because his head was so close to air conditioner. It was some white noise for him. But this guy was an absolute trooper. We made some trades in the actual hotel room, and it was fun for all of us. It was a great time. But Mofa Joe is an awesome part here of nooffseason.com, and we've loved your work that you've been doing with us lately, especially getting our agendas ready and getting some of our data ready. Mofa Joe is the real MVP, everybody. So anything else you want to say?
No. It's great to get some accolades from you, man. I appreciate that. And you guys are doing great things with the hobby, and I just love to be a part of it.
So tell the audience a little bit about what makes Joe tick, bro. Like, give us something that we can go off of that, it's a little soundbite that we can use for the rest of forever.
What makes me tick, man? I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. I do a little bit of everything, and sports cards has been just a passion project of mine. It makes my heart full. So having the ability to share knowledge with you guys and be an active member of this community. I mean, that's what makes me tick, man. Being involved.
That's awesome, dude. And where's the farmer come from?
Oh, so I actually have I have a pretty large farm up here in North Georgia.
Okay. Georgia boy.
Yeah, man. I grew up in Maryland, but I bought some acreage, got away from the craziness, and now I have a shiitake mushroom farm that I sell to local restaurants and at farmers markets, and then I'm actually in the process of buying some heads of cattle, and I'm going to be raising cattle here soon. So
come on, not only are you a farmer, you're going to be a rancher.
Hell yeah,
Rancher Joe. I like that one too. Mofa Mo. There's too many things going on.
We just need to just stick with Joe, I think, at this point.
That's so good. Shiitake mushroom farmer. So you're a shroom farmer. All right. A legal shroom farmer, sounds like. So we're excited to have you on. Where did the mosaic come from? Give us some lore on that one.
So when I was a kid, I was really into art. Like I grew up painting, drawing, anything I could do as far as art, and I grew to really enjoy doing mosaics. And when Prism in 2016 came out with the mosaic insert set and then the subset, I started collecting that like crazy. So I have a few thousand of the 2016 and all different color variations. And then when they came out with their main set, it just felt right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. In 2022, I believe, a buddy knew I was into cards, and he got me a Donruss pack for my birthday. And he was just like, he didn't know that it was literally worthless, and so he just gives me a little hanger from Walmart, and I ended up pulling a red prism or a red mosaic Mike Trout out of it. And it wasn't licensed or anything, but I was like, this card is so cool. I ended up sending it into PSA, got a PSA 10 and sold it for $250. So,
it's there, man. It's there. The money's there.
Yeah, it worked out on that specific card. I think, like that guy spent what, $30 on the hanger, and I ended up getting a $250 PSA 10 out of it. So it was cool. So let's go ahead and give us some live chat love here. I am not I can't see the Instagram stuff like Paul can always see it. So I can just tell us who's here in the live chat here from YouTube. We've got Rusty Immigart, Terry Anderson, Brian Bartunik, Jaime Corona, as we talked about earlier, Bo Dennis Cards and Comics, Andrew McDade, Andrew Helms, and then we've got Richard Villarreal as well. So you guys, thank you for coming on. We love that you're here with us. We love that me and Mofa Joe, now we have a large team enough to be able to, Paul can take a day off and spend some time with family, and then me and Joe can get after it and without skipping a step. So what we want to go into in our first segment here is a new offseason Discord success stories. If you guys are not in our Discord already, our premium membership that you can get a free 30-day trial of at nooffseason.com, you can go premium, and then you get an invite to our Discord as well that has a lot of success stories in there, and a lot of people that are showing different things. But we have a text channel that's labeled straight up success stories, and two of the success stories that I wanted to pull out from the channel is two golf cards that we really thought were an awesome win for our community. I specifically was high on golf in the summer. I made that pretty apparent as my two big investments over the summer in quarterback wise were Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff, and boy, did that play out. Like both of those guys ended up having really good seasons, and I ended up profiting big time on both of those cards all of those cards that I bought of both of those quarterbacks in July. But it looks like, as we started making some content around it, Terry Anderson and Zach Ellsworth also made really good plays on this. And when we look at our Discord, just two of the wins that we pulled out were two different Jared Goff cards. And so I wanted to pull those out of us or pull those out really quickly and talk about them. They both made really, really good wins here. We've got Terry Anderson. We'll start off with his card specifically. He had a rookie or a Donruss Optic rated rookie number 172 PSA 10, which is the same card I had basically, but the non-autographed version of it. Ended up purchasing it September 24th for $52 with tax. It ended up being $58.10. He had an offer at $89 that he was talking about at the time. Should I take? Should I not? It's almost a double. He ended up waiting, and then somebody binned that sucker at $104.99. So that is a $47 profit and an 81% return on investment before taxes and fees. We were not privy to what Terry ended up getting after taxes and fees, but still $47 profit on a $58 card before taxes and fees and an 81% ROI on just a regular rated rookie from a top quarterback that he paid $50 for is fantastic. And then if I jump down to the other golf card, this one's big, Joe. This one is a kaboom. So Zach Ellsworth ended up going big on golf, which I love. I respect because obviously I went big on him as well. He goes and gets a Jared Goff kaboom PSA 10 for $375, and 6 weeks later, somebody bins that sucker for $699. So he goes and makes a $324 profit on a $375 purchase, and also an 80. His was 86, but they both made somewhere in the 80s return on investment percentage. Great 6-week play here by Zach Ellsworth. And I just wanted to point out that these guys both sold before, I believe, Jared Goff gets eliminated from the playoffs. So they did not do what I did and wait until the day of he was actually losing it. I believe these guys both had binned their offers much earlier. So pretty cool that both of these guys, Zach and Terry, ended up following in some of the success that we've had at the nooffseason.com sports card strategy show family on our Discord. And man, we love how our community is getting wins alongside us. And what I like to say, like I actually texted this to Turner the other day. I was like, when one of us wins, we all win. We're not hiding, some of our money hole strategies from everyone else. Like we're not over here at a honey hole and then telling everybody to do this other thing. We're pretty transparent about what we're doing. And Terry and Zach, we love that you guys made big wins here as well. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah. I mean, the Discord is popping. I mean, we have over 100 active members currently on the Discord. And when I say active, I mean active. These guys are constantly throwing out plays and really digging into how to make the most out of their investment. And I really, truly enjoy being able to take part in that. And I actually, I watched these two plays happen and I was just so happy for them. You double up your money. That's what dreams are made of. Everybody goes into a card hoping that happens. Right. So seeing that they were able to do that and they did it with the advice that you and Paul gave earlier in the season, it's just, man, that's great.
Hey, that's what wins are made of, man. And this isn't a one-off for what we're doing here. And Terry says would not have known about this car without you guys. We appreciate you, Terry. You're listening with us live and we love that, but also you're making wins alongside. You're not just coasting for free content, like you are winning and we love that. And so make sure to stop in for the Discord. We've got big wins there. You guys keep sharing your wins there. It's cool for us to see as a community when we're all winning. And so, like I said, when one of us wins, we all win. And we're going to go on from there. Continue to fill in the chat. We'll try to get to these as we go. There's some of them that I'm going to we're going to talk about later in the show. I'll just go ahead and put Arturo up here. He said, good afternoon. Lucky to catch the stream. Recently pulled a red retail Drake May Prism. Need to message y'all to talk about comps. Yeah, that's exactly what we do. If you'll go to nooffseason.com/ask, our premium members can ask us specific questions. We have a form there that you can fill out to give us the best information for us to give you the most informed return on your questions. And when we do that, we also create another show once a week that's our premium pod, and we like to answer the questions of our community. We're also having a segment of Ask the Grader, and that's a pretty cool segment that we love, and we're able to do that. Ziggy says, cheers. Love to see you, Ziggy. Been a while. Lefty almost bid on that BGS golf auto you had. Loved the look of that card. Did you ever consider cracking and sending it to PSA? Yes, I did. Just didn't. It was just too big. What the weird thing about this card, Joe, this has been something that I've been trying to figure out. I do this often, right? Like I sold cards a lot. And I really felt like this out of 75 Jared Goff auto never got the views that it was supposed to get. No. And just like all these other golf cards I had would have like hundreds of views. And for whatever reason, this out of 75 blue autograph parallel would have like half of the viewers everybody else did. And I think it was a steal for whoever ended up getting after it, because of course I waited too long to sell it. And we've talked about that. But at the same time, I just felt like it never really had the eyeballs that it really needed for it to sell well. And I wondered if it was just a parallel that people couldn't really tell that it was a parallel and something, because it was blue. And so it looked fairly close to, like if you look at Terry Anderson's photo of the card he sold, it really looked pretty similar to that. And so people could have just looked at it and been like, oh, that's just a base, I'm going to bid the base card value of it. And although it was a pretty good rarity, it just didn't really, the pictures I don't think did it justice. So it's
kind of like a hobby logic type of thing. I know there are certain colorways that have lower serial numbers that don't even add up to the same prices of like a hollow or it's a strange little scenario that we find ourselves in sometimes. And I feel like, like you said, yours was definitely a steal. Definitely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful card for sure. Glad I had it. Glad am out of it. You know, I didn't want to hold it into the off season, even if I did take a little bit of a loss on it. But I made such big wins on Lamar and Jared earlier in the season. I could afford for one of them to be a null. Actually, of the 9 big cards, I would say big cards of the 9, like, solid acquisitions that I made. Like, sometimes you just buy a card that you just like, you're like, oh, whatever, you know, like, and you're just like, I just like this one, you know. Like, I remember I bought an Abby Wambach PSA 9 one time, which, do you even know who Abby Wambach is?
I don't.
Yeah, she's like she's a retired United States Women's National Team Hall of Famer. And so she's like, I just saw the card and I was like, wow, no one even knows who that is, but I think it's cool. So I bought it. And it's been in my vault at PSA ever since. But at the same time, like, of the cards that I bought that if I knew were going to be investments, I only lost on 2 of them. One of them was the Jared Goff, and one of them was Deshaun Watson, who I spent very small amounts of money on, knowing that it was going to be a Hail Mary play. So, obviously that did not play out. So for Jared Goff to be my pretty much break even, and for everything else to absolutely bang, I think it was a good success. Yeah. Well, let's go to hobby news real quick. One thing we want to point out is some release schedules. We are in the first week of February here, and so there is a big addition to the sports card world that is coming out, which is funny that we are literally saying this is a big addition to the sports card world. 2024 WNBA Prism that we've been talking about quite often is coming out this week. So we will start seeing the Caitlin Clark Prism Silvers go for crazy money here. Maybe even today, because you always know that there are some people that get access to them a little early. But we also had 2024 Hoops basketball come out last week. That is a retail checklist. It's just basically a lot of paper. Sometimes there's some investable cards in there, but definitely not one that we commonly recommend. The only Hoops card I can really think of that is off the top of my head that's not like vintage, it would be Giannis's Hoops that I believe me and you traded one time. So the Giannis Hoops from 2013, I believe, is the only other Hoops card that I can think of. I think Melo had one in like 2020 that's now cooled way off, but definitely not a product that typically has high value cards, even though it's going to have Wemby in it. So
yeah, it's just the first release of all the latest rookies. So the first major set. So there will be a time for it to have some sales, but it's going to cool off as soon as the next product comes out.
Yeah, and there's not that many like just super parabolic rookies in this class, you know, like you kind of knew that was going to be the case because Wemby is like a black hole of attention, and the next one's going to be Cooper. So you know you're going to have that middle. I mean, it's really hard to have 3 dynamic classes all at once, especially with all the reclassification and all this kind of stuff. So you're trying to have guys get in. Like we saw Paige Beckers reclassify to this year's draft because she didn't want to come out last year with the Caitlin Clark and Angel Rose and all that kind of stuff. And so I think there's some of that going on in the men's game as well. So, but then there's also our Topps 24 Diamond Icons that comes out the same day as WNBA Prism. Of course, we are more excited about the Prism release because of how much Caitlin Clark has made us money on this show. She's been the number 1 return on investment player in my portfolio in the last 2 years. So I have gone in and out of, I think, 5 or 6 different big Caitlin Clark cards. I've just recently made a huge return on her Rookie of the Year cards that I had graded. But I know at some point I will have a Prism Silver and I will sell some of her Prism Silvers. It might not be right away because I can have a feeling that these are going to be very expensive. But I think I have a play here that I'm thinking of. What do you think about this WNBA Prism set, and what do you think the play is here?
So, you know, I set up at a lot of shows, and I get a lot of people that come up to my tables, and I always ask them what's in their case. You know, if they're carrying around a case, I want to see what's in it. And my play is to find something that I can trade for. I'm not going to be spending any my capital on her right away. I'm going to be trying to trade into maybe silvers or bigger versions of her WNBA Prism. But yeah, my play is to just fade it until I actually see it come across my table. I'm not going to be buying anything on eBay. I don't want to be the last comp. I don't want any part of it other than buying or trading at shows.
There is a 2024 Monopoly Silver out already on eBay that I just looked up. And then there's a couple of All-American. Looks like that's her Iowa jersey. The Monopoly does have her Fever jersey in it. But if you just eBay Caitlin Clark Prism, there is some base cards that are already hitting eBay as well. So it doesn't look like there's anything silver related that is super big yet, but it's coming, and it's going to be on there, and this card is going to be crazy. So
yeah. Paul and I both faded we had a gold Monopoly Caitlin rookie that came across our table at Culture Collision. We faded that, but the comps on that were like $2,200 raw. So I can't imagine that her official WNBA Prism prices aren't going to be just astronomical to start off with.
Yeah. So what was it? A PSA 10? The Monopoly?
No, it was raw.
Just a raw Monopoly Prism?
Gold.
Oh, gold. Okay, I was like, because there's one with 11 minutes left with $32 on it. So
yeah.
I might if it's 2,200, this might be a steal. But I realize what you said now.
Yeah.
Looks like there is nothing really out yet. Now that I look at it, it's all in her Iowa jerseys. The white Iowa jersey confused me for a second. I got a little bit excited that there was an early release out here, but definitely will be something that we see later this week, something that I'm very excited about. I think the play is go after her select cards. I think that's the easiest play in this, is go after the Panini Select WNBA cards that we've been talking about and that we have on our checklist at nooffseason.com. For premium members, we have the raw to grade strategy, and the select raw, it has been in the raw to grade strategy for a while. And I believe we'll get better price points on it when people are moving to the Prism. And it's still a Caitlin Clark. And if we're getting 10s on these and we're still getting silvers out of them, that's still a nice card to have. So that would be my play on the WNBA Prism, at least in the first couple of weeks, is just move to select, even though I am very outspoken about not liking select. I don't like the way it looks. It's a card set that I just would rather not look at. But, I do look at money. So money counts. So if I'm going to make money on a card, I don't mind flipping it.
So Lefty, I do have a question about that for you. What do you think about her firsts, though? Her Bowman firsts. I know it's in the college uniform, but
it would be my preferred card in the two. Like if you were going to say, hey, select or Bowman first, what are you going after? I'm still going after the Bowman first because, with her being in the Iowa jersey, there's still so many fans out there that just see her as Caitlin Clark, the Iowa superstar. Like on the February 2nd, they retired her 22 number alongside Asia Wilson, also got her 22 number retired at South Carolina, and so I think there's enough women's college hoops hype around Caitlin Clark that people are still going to be buying and selling her Iowa cards for a while. I'm not really concerned about that. I actually think at this present stage, I still think people, when you close your eyes and say, picture Caitlin Clark winning a game, they're still picturing her in black and yellow. I don't know if people are mentally ready to move her over into red. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I really, I'm a huge fan of the collegiate products, especially since now they're, licensed. I do think there was a huge opportunity that was missed with Caitlin Clark. Just she had the opportunity to be a part of the All-Star festivities for the NBA.
Yeah, I did.
They invited her, and like Ionescu did the year prior. She actually declined though. So,
why do you think she declined?
I really don't know. What do you think?
I think it goes along with her wanting to preserve her brand right now. I think she didn't go overseas and play anywhere this offseason. She took it as a break. Her first thing that she said was, she'd been playing basically for 2 years straight because her college season ended almost right as her WNBA season was starting. So, and the first off season for her was bananas. So she had been talking about how she really wanted to take some time off, just to get her body right. One, I think that could really propel her season this year. The Fever made some incredible additions in the free agency that I don't want to talk about necessarily the whole WNBA product because I know it's not investable across the board. But for Caitlin, her team got much, much, much better this offseason. They ended up making 3 big-time free agency additions that'll help her in the depth of her team. Plus, they ended up they retained the third player on her team. So it's like they just got a lot better. They changed their coach. They got deeper. They can contend for a WNBA championship right now. Yeah, Andrew Helms also says they could contend. Agreed. But I think that preserves her. But she could come out like as healthy as she's ever been. That's one thing I think about. The second thing is, I don't know if she wants to be Ionescu. I think she wants to be better than Ionescu. I think she wants to be different than Ionescu. And I think right now she's known as a shooter. And I think she wants to be known as an overall guard, and like a dominant number 1 player in women's basketball, not just a 3-point shooter. I think that plays into it as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And over the last 365 days, what is interesting is I've pulled up her Bowman chart here for the Bowman Chrome University base that we're talking about, the Bowman First with her dribbling. The Bowman First is going right now for about $120. The last sale was $129. In September, like right before the playoffs of the WNBA season, this card went for $340. So it'd be a great time to buy into this card. I think if you look at just the averages over the last year, in March and April, this card sold for even like $240. So it was like $100 higher than it is right now. And her cards are pretty much out after Prism comes out. Like they're all out, and we've talked about that being a big marker for when you start buying big into players. Of course, she's got a large market share. She's got 1 million gazillion instant cards or Tops Now cards. And, Rookie of the Years now. She's got Prisms out, all this kind of stuff. So this is just another parallel. But there's 3,000 of them in PSA 10. That's a really low pop, actually, for a Caitlin Clark card. So I don't hate it.
Yeah. I've been keeping a close eye on the release schedule. And sometimes Tops and Panini, they'll throw something in there randomly, like what was it, the Tops Mercury that came out with the Wemby set. Yeah. So I've often thought like this is their opportunity to do that with Caitlin Clark, and I'm wondering if there will still be an opportunity in a bigger set that's more geared just towards Caitlin Clark. You think that's a possibility?
I do think that's a possibility. I think it's a they know who their cash cow is, or they have a couple of them at this point, and Caitlin's definitely going to be somebody who's going to keep going. And I think there's more moves to be made in the WNBA that will be controversial in her career. I think she's not done making the sport different. She's not done changing the sport. I think there will come with good and bad things as well. And there will be stuff that has already been good and bad in her career, with all the controversy she's faced with like players on other teams and stuff. So anyway, I'm looking forward to like what her market does going forward. But let's jump into another. I teased it a second ago. We had the 2024 Topps Diamond Icons. We have our first look at a new kind of parallel that Topps that talked about today. They released on Twitter, X, earlier this morning, that they are working on a new kind of card. So we're going to watch a YouTube video of about 30 seconds. So for those of you that aren't watching with us live on Instagram or YouTube, we'll do our best to explain this video after these 30 seconds, but let's go ahead and watch this video.
A new era has begun. A team of designers has cracked the code on an innovation that has to be seen to be believed. Shifting light patterns in vibrant colors that dance off the card. A feat of technology worthy of your collection. Liquid silver and liquid gold. Only from Topps. A new era.
All right, Joe. What is this? Please
I don't know. I'm actually pretty excited about it. It's got such a nice reflective fractal look to it. I want to see one in person. There's all these technologies that have come out over the past 10, 15 years, where the atomic refractors, when they first came out in early Topps Finest products, I remember that that catapulted the Topps Finest product. It was like 2007 or 8, I believe, that came out. And I remember chasing those, making so much money off of those. I can't imagine that something that looks as good as they're saying it's going to look won't have a premium attached to it. So I'm excited to see these in person.
Yeah, I think it's something that I just kind of got my eyes on today for the first time. And the video has shown two parallels, a silver and a gold of Wemby. I mean, not Wemby, Shohei, the Shohei, the Wemby of baseball, if you will. Shohei Ohtani, or maybe maybe Wemby's the Shohei of basketball. We could debate that another day. But and that would require Paul, because those are 2 of his 5 investments. So, but the liquid, it's going to definitely be rigid. Like, you're going to be able to feel the difference. You're going to be able to see. I mean, the video talks about they clearly just said you're going to have to see this to understand how cool it is. And I think this is going to be a card that's going to be for sure out of my price range. So it's going to be one of those things I'm going to have to see at the National or something like that, or it's going to be behind a bulletproof glass or something like that. I think this card's going to go for stupid money. But definitely cool. I like that Topps is still innovating, like if they're going to keep, doing all the random normal stuff, like, and just scalping money off the top for all these paper products that don't mean anything, I would like for them to have some innovative high-end stuff as well. And that's what this is. I mean, it's not an NFT. It's not like something that's not a sports card. This is a sports card, and it is a tangible resource that's going to have literal gold and silver on the card. Like, come on. Like, if the card market just completely falls apart, you can melt this thing and make some money at a pawn shop for it. Like, that's freaking sick. What do you think?
Yeah, so I've kind of had this argument with a couple of people that I've set up with shows with. They've actually, I think it was Impeccable or one of those top end sets. They came out with the silver bar and the gold bar cards, and there's like a quarter troy ounce of. But then you look at the prices of the cards versus the quarter troy ounce of gold, and the card's selling less than the gold. It's like, okay, well, why not just take the gold bar out and melt it down? So I don't know exactly the chemical makeup that they're using for these cards, if it's going to have substantial amount of either of those precious metals, but I am excited about it. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful card. I'm glad they're like you said, they're advancing the technology, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I think Ziggy brings up a good point here. Probably easy to weigh in CAT scan, sadly, or CT scan. I actually have a take on this. I think they're just going to be redemptions. Similar to what we've seen some of the MLB debut patches. Some of those patch cards are pullable, but some of the patch cards, they want to have a premium on the quality control on them. They don't want to leave it in a box that's going to potentially get on a shelf and fall off a shelf and ding a corner of every card in the set. Like, they want to have a lot more quality control over it. And so they put them in as redemptions so that they can fully give you one straight up without putting just a one touch of a card in a box that's going to be obvious, So I think that could be their way around it, is they just put these as redemption onlys. But they obviously would have to already have them ready too, because then if they were just redemption onlys and they didn't come in for 7 years, that's a problem, So That would be the way that I would think that they would go about it. But you know what? They never asked me, Joe. They never asked me.
I don't care what we think.
Which is a shame. Tops, I know you're watching right now to the best show in the sports card market, and you should be listening to what I'm saying. Right now, I hope some guy in the PR department is like, get a paper. I got to write this down. Lefty's got some hot fire that he's talking about. Yeah. So 2025 Tops comes out this next couple of weeks. Its release date is February 12th. And then coming soon, we've got Immaculate and Prism Basketball. And those are some things we're moving into. Okay. We've got to talk about this. It's 40 minutes into the show, and we have not mentioned the absolute eruption of NBA media when Luka Doncic was traded to the Lakers for Anthony Davis and a bunch of yahoos. This is crazy, Mofa Joe. Give me something on why this happens.
Well, Luka he's had opportunities. There's been plenty of seasons where they have advanced well into the playoffs.
Last year they were in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, you would assume that the Mavericks would have leveraged him for more.
Yeah,
actually,
that's what I was thinking.
Anthony Davis being, what is he? What, 30,
31?
31, yeah. Being 31 years old, injury prone. I just don't see how that happens, and especially the way it happened. Everybody within the organization basically said that it just took them by surprise. Even Jason Kidd, he was like, I didn't know this was happening until I was told it happened. So there's definitely what I'm looking at is the reports of how the Mavericks didn't have to pay him an extra $146 million. And I think that was the primary reason behind it. They wanted to build a team outside of the Luka realm, and they got what I guess they thought was the best trade possible. I see him. He could have been traded for so many other players, could have been bought actually for more than what they got. So I'm a little confused. I'm shocked just as everyone is, I'm sure. But I'd like to hear your take.
Well, I'm shocked. First off, when you saw the two names come across the screen, I'm watching, I was up late watching a show with my wife, and I see, my watch buzzes, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to check it. I'm going to lock in here. And all of a sudden my watch just starts buzzing. Everybody that ever has had a pulse that loves basketball is texting me. I can't believe this. Are you seeing this? Get up, wife, wake up. Like Luka Doncic has just been traded. It's like crazy. And we're on Eastern time over here, Joe. So it was kind of late when it broke, and so there are some things that I'm like, this is stupid. And then there are some things where I know that the Mavericks didn't want to hitch their wagon to him when he's 275 and he's 25 years old. What is that going to look like when he's 35? Is he going to be more James Harden and less LeBron James when he's 30? Are we seeing a guy that just loves to score and his defensive ratings are going down on a team that really likes to pride itself on defense? And so some of it you can make maybe some sort of a silver lining, but I still just think this trade doesn't make a whole lot of sense other than maybe Luka pissed off somebody in that front office and they're like, you don't own the place, I do. That's kind of the vibe that it gives me. And because Jason Kidd and LeBron James and JJ Redick didn't know about the trade, you've got to think that this was just Nico, pulling a power swing on what was going on in Dallas. And they get a guy that they feel comfortable can push them into a compete now, but also save them money in the long run. But now the Lakers also have a plan post LeBron James, because obviously Bronny James isn't working out. So it's a weird thing. But from a card perspective, I had Joe look up some data for us earlier today, and interesting finds, over the last 7 days. This is previous to, obviously this happened 2 nights ago, right? And so was it Saturday night that this happened? I think it was Saturday night.
Yeah, Saturday night, I believe.
Yeah, because the Fox deal, which we're going to talk about in just a second, it was the next day. Came out the next day. So I'm going to tease the Fox deal, and we're not going to spend as much time on that, other than because I know that we'll spend a lot of time talking about that trade specifically going forward, because Fox will be paired with Wemby, and Wemby's cards are talked about a lot on this show. And so we're going to talk about, just let me run through some numbers real quick. Over the last 7 days, and this includes the last 2 with the trade news, he has a card. These are just all of his cards. 2018 Donruss Optic Base up 212%. 2008, this is Luka, by the way. 2018 Donruss Optic Base 177 up 79% in a PSA 10 rather than a raw. Volume change of 417% with 31 sales. 2018 Prism Freshman Phenom Silver PSA 10 up 107%. 2018 Prism 280 base PSA 10 up 65%. 2018 Prism base PSA 9 up 75%. Then you go to Anthony Davis, 2012 Prism base PSA 10 up 27%. 2012 Marquee 152 Swirl-O-Rama raw up 543%. 2012 Brilliance 234 base up 234%. 2012 Hoops 275 after I just bashed Hoops PSA 9 up 80%. So it's like, yes, we see positive. Usually we see movement in their cards when a star is traded, but these are 2 stars that could have better opportunities in their new team. Like, from a card perspective, this could be a win-win for both of these players. I think Anthony Davis is on a more competitive win now team with Dallas. And then Luka is now the guy in LA, which we have seen really does well in the marketing department. It was Magic Johnson, and then it was Kobe, and then it was, you obviously you had other stars in there like Shaq and Kareem and all this, but then you also had, then it was moving from Kobe to LeBron, and then LeBron to now Luka, which is a crazy transition. I didn't think that was going to be the person that was going to take the reins of the next LA franchise. But he's there. And I think his card market will continue to go up. And that 2018, I guess it's his Prism, was selling for crazy money in 2020, 2021. Like, that's one of those cards that they show all the Instagram data on it falling from grace on. And so I don't think we'll see a return back to those numbers, but you'll still see him in that fadeaway similar to a Dirk that's now not going to be a Dirk comparison, which is just how his career was going. I don't know, just crazy things happening in the NBA. How do you think in the long run this affects, like, of course, obviously in the short term, we're getting the buzz from the transactions, but how do you think this affects both of these guys' card markets 6-12 months from now?
Well, Luka went to an inferior team. Being there with LeBron obviously brings more eyes in the LA market. We know that that's a major market. But for me, I'm looking at the volume change of these sales that you were just mentioning for Luka, and the optic base, that was 650% volume change over the last 7 days. I'm looking at how many people are trying to get as much as they can out of these cards now, because it's a little shaky thinking about the future of him within the Lakers organization. So if it were me, I'm not sitting on any Lukas. And I actually had an opportunity to get into a few, and I'll be talking about this here shortly, but I could have profited now, but if it was something that I was trying to invest in and hold on to for the future, I wouldn't have been so sold. I'm thinking now is a good selling marker, and I don't know that there is going to be another one anytime soon.
Yeah, I definitely think that about Anthony Davis. He may have a marker that's playoff worthy, because this Dallas team is scary. They've beaten the Thunder 3 times, I think, already. So they're definitely willing and ready to beat some of these biggest teams. And they've done this with Luka having a calf injury. So they've done it without him already. And now they're adding Anthony Davis to a mix of a team that's super long and very defensive. So, it'll just be interesting. I think we see Luka's market go up in the long term. I think we see Davis's market die in the long term. And I think in the short term, it's the opposite, And so, the volume change is really something. You're seeing people trying to get out of these 2 players, of course, for profit's sake, but also it's like they don't know what the future is for either one of these guys. And I think LA gets worse before they get better. LeBron said he's going to stay until Thursday when the trade deadline is over. So we'll see LeBron in yellow for, the future, at least now. But, still it's uncertain there. And so,
and I hear that
another pick, it's just like, wow.
Yeah. And I hear that LA is actually trying to get another big now. Like I've heard Nick Claxton's name being thrown out there from the Nets, and they don't have that guy now. So they're very small, and they losing Anthony Davis is a huge cog in the wheel for the Lakers organization, and they need a big. And I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't see it.
In the short term, we see Jackson Hayes running out there. So he is springy, but not the guy that you want to build a franchise around. There is another trade that happened this week that we will briefly touch on. De'Aaron Fox goes to San Antonio. That is insane. I love that matchup with Fox and Wemby. I think that is awesome for the black and silver out there in San Antonio. This team is looking like this team is scary, brother. Like they are really building something that's going to be awesome. I think that San Antonio, Oklahoma rivalry going forward is going to be super fun to watch. I think what the Rockets are also kind of on the up and up, like Mavericks, I guess, are on the way down. Who knows what's going? We just talked about that, but that whole like geographic area of basketball is very interesting right now. And then you still have Memphis, which is fairly close there too. And then New Orleans is just, it's a poop show out there. So, De'Aaron Fox going to the Spurs. I like it. There's a lot of names in this trade. I don't know if any of them really matter from a card perspective outside of De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox's volume on some of these are really high, up 800% on one of these volume-wise over the last 7 days. But all of his cards are up and to the right as well, which you would think, he's going to play with Wemby. It doesn't matter. He's going to be a guy that's definitely going to be sold really well. And a guy that I've met De'Aaron, and I got to coach against him when I was a college basketball coach at the University of Kentucky, and they absolutely murdered my team. But I got to meet him, and he couldn't be a better dude. And so, I've always been a really De'Aaron I always mix it up because Paul always makes fun of him.
Aaron.
De'Aaron Fox is a very, very, very nice guy. I really loved my interactions with him. And so I'm glad that he's going. I've always loved him as a player as well. And for him to be the guy paired with Wemby, couldn't be more excited about that. Let's jump really quickly to February 6th. We have some end of the year NFL honors. Let's just briefly touch on this. Of course, we have some locks. I think we've got Jaden Daniels winning Rookie of the Year. It'll probably be his last selling marker for a while. Get out of Jaden Daniels while you can. I've literally sold every card I have of his. I sold 50 of them this week, and we'll talk about that in a second. Offensive Player of the Year, Saquon. I doubt you had any of his cards to begin with, but if you still have his cards now, get out of them. He's probably going to win Offensive Player of the Year. Shame that Joe Burrow just got such a kick in the nuts this year because he had a great season. Comeback Player of the Year. You would think it's Sam Darnold, but then he pooped on himself as well. And it probably is going to be Joe Burrow, which is fun. And MVP finalist, this one is going to be weird. My take is Lamar Jackson. Are you taking Josh Allen?
I think Saquon.
Okay.
I think Saquon. I think he's going to get
MVP. Well, do you think it's already wrapped up, or do you think it's like? Do you think there's still stuff to come on this? I mean, I know.
I think it's wrapped up. I do believe that Saquon did enough this year to prove that he should get it. I mean, he almost touched he's that close to getting like the single season rushing record.
And he probably could have gotten even closer. He sat out the last game. So
exactly. He could have got it. I think he was 100 yards.
I think he was like 100 and something yards away, like definitely achievable. And he was like, no, I'm going to be healthy. So yeah. But okay. The real fact of the matter is, should we care about any of this from a sports card perspective, or has our cards, are they going to matter in a week, or is this already done?
This is done. The performance has proven itself. People don't sit here and just look at the awards and make purchases based off of the awards.
Amen. All right. Well said. We're just going to leave it at that. Let's go into our segment on some raw to grade that we found in our strategy. If you go into our formula, Jake the Guardian, as I like to call him, has added a bunch of cards. We've gotten some new guys on the list. We've got the cards that we wanted to pinpoint here is Jordan Love and CJ Stroud specifically. It's part of our title of the day, quarterback sports card buys, Jordan Love or CJ Stroud. And so before I ask you that same simple question here, as we come to the hour mark, I'm going to go ahead and talk about these cards really quick. We've got a Jordan Love 2024 Donruss Downtown. It's number 5. It's a current target cost of $432 with a projected ROI of 45%, which means you're going to have a selling marker around $775, $800. I think, right? Is that right? No, wait, I've done my math wrong. I didn't have a math major. Let's just keep going. Jordan Love 2020 Contenders rookie ticket auto 111, target cost $565, a return on investment of 37%. These cards that we're talking about are against CJ Stroud 2023 Prism Blue Wave 199. It's a target cost of $400. That it has a return on investment of 27%. And then we also have a CJ Stroud 2023 Downtown D2 target cost $862, with that return on investment being 9%, but it's you're going to make good money still because of the money that you've put down. So we're essentially here comparing a Jordan Love Downtown and a rookie ticket auto against a CJ Stroud Prism Blue Wave and a Downtown as well. Let's just put it this way: if I had a water pistol to your head, because we're not trying to get crazy over here, but if I had a water pistol, a super soaker, if you will, about to douse you with some water, and you had to pick CJ Stroud or Jordan Love, and these cards specifically, let's say you go ahead and buy one of each. Okay, so it's like a mini gauntlet here, in these raw to grade strategies. Which one are you picking? Are you picking CJ Stroud or Jordan Love?
Stroud Downtown.
Yeah, you're going to Stroud. Talk to me. What do you think?
Well, I just don't. So, we were talking earlier about your golf and being that it was a low serial number. The blue waves just don't get the respect in the hobby that you see in other variations. The Contenders rookie ticket auto is a great card, but I'm curious of what the pop count is on that. And I'm not a huge believer in Jordan Love. And then the other Downtown is a 2024. So it's not a rookie. It's from a Donruss set that had produced more Downtowns than it ever had. I don't know if you remember when those Hobby Delight or whatever they were calling the Breakers Delight boxes were coming out. People were hitting, umpteen Downtowns in these boxes. Yeah. So I don't know the print run on that either. So I am solid.
Which I think you see in a price reflection there too. Jordan Love's Downtown is half the price of a 2023 Downtown of CJ Stroud.
Yeah. I'd rather invest the $862 into a CJ Stroud rookie Downtown than put my money anywhere else in that list.
Yeah, I like that. I think I'm right there with you with CJ Stroud, even though he kind of came off of a sophomore slump here, and we still saw him make the playoffs and still not get the respect he really deserved. He didn't, light the stage on fire this year like he did the year before. But I don't know. I've never really felt like that Jordan Love doesn't pass my eye test. Let's just put it that way. I don't really know what he has there. I think Green Bay is still also trying to figure that out. I think they didn't believe in him, and then he came out and they're like, "Yep, actually, we never said we didn't." Like they're like, "We never said that," and so then it's just like, I know that Paul's been pretty high on Jordan Love, and he's sold Jordan Love pretty well, which is really the thing that matters is it going to sell for more than you bought it for? And I just think that even though that CJ Stroud will be a little bit harder to get a buyer for because of the elevated price point, I think it is probably the more sure investment on my side. I do agree with you on the blue wave. Even though I had a purple sell pretty well this year of Lamar Jackson, I think it was more due to team color stuff. So
yeah.
And I do like a rookie ticket auto, but if you're pushing me against a Jordan Love rookie ticket auto versus a CJ Stroud downtown and they both look gradable, I think I'm going with the downtown. So
yeah.
The one thing that I'll say, because just for the fact that we both have baseball hats on here today, it's almost baseball season. We haven't really messed with it at all today. But another raw to grade that I really like is this Topps Update short print of Mookie Betts. The Dodgers are incredible. And if you're going to invest in a Dodger, Mookie is pretty high on that list, even though there's a bunch of names out there. He's playing a premium position again this year. The target cost is $250, and the return on investment is 94%. It's a 2014 Topps Update. We've seen good numbers buying cards from that era and grading them a 10. I am interested in this card. I'll be honest. I really think that would be, out of all of these cards, we even threw a Marvin Harrison in here on the notes. I think Mookie Betts would be the one that I would buy, and not just because I'm a baseball fan. I just think it's the shortest runway of any of these cards because I don't want to hold them until July. And I think that Mookie he's just special. So I would like that 2014 Topps Update, even though he's not in a Dodger uniform on it. So that's where I'm going with that.
There's only one rookie, or actually one Dodger that you want to chase that has his rookie jersey in Dodgers blue, and that's Yamamoto, right?
Yeah.
So everybody else was on another team. So I don't know that really affects, especially the prime stars markets as much as it does for guys that are just now switching teams and haven't established themselves as stars. So that Red Sox uniform doesn't affect his price too much, I don't think.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. All right, so let's jump into our next segment here, which Turner has worked very hard on. He has worked and gotten 4 pick matchups for us for a gauntlet. I know that we love this. We love talking about the strategy. I'm going to present 2 cards from you, and I want you to pick between the 2. The first of them, is this your first gauntlet, by the way, Mofa Joe?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's get into it. We're going to do Joe Kendall here. That's the order we're going to go in, or Lefty, if you will. My government name is Kendall, so we're going to go by Joe Lefty. So the first matchup here is a 2023 Prism Silver Anthony Richards. We're going to go with a PSA 10 last sold for $100 according to Market Movers versus a Prism Silver Bryce Young here. So we're going to match these 2 cards up against each other. And I know this is going to be hard to read on some of these, but we're going to do a Prism Silver Anthony Richards versus a Prism Silver Bryce Young, comping at a fairly close asking price at the $70 difference. I'm going to say we're going to say that that this is close enough to be comparable. So who do you pick?
Well, bias is tough in this game, isn't it? I really liked what I saw at the end of the season with Bryce Young. I haven't seen anything I liked so far with Anthony Richardson outside of a couple splash plays, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy enough to even show me what he's capable of. So I think the safe investment and the one that will see some upside before the season starts is going to be Bryce Young. I assume that they're going to get a decent draft pick, have a little bit of hype leading up into the season because of the way that he finished, and I think he's the safe bet there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you here. I still have an Anthony Richardson card that I haven't moved out of, and I'm just gonna, but it's like so low on my priority list that I don't even have it in my vault actually. And for those of you that know, I have almost everything in my vault. It's literally sitting in my Pelican case underneath my desk because I'm just like, I don't really know. Anthony Richardson is just such a player for me. So I would totally rather have Bryce Young because I like the way that he ended the season. I like the way that they benched him and then he came back and he looked like he took the punch to the mouth and was just like, I'm still a player worth investing in. So I like the Bryce Young as well. Even though it was your pick, I thought I'd comment on it. So the next one is a Cade Cunningham. So we're going to put a Cade Cunningham PSA 10, which last sold according to market movers for around $400. A Prism Silver Cade Cunningham PSA 10 is going to go up against a let's say 2 to 3 different Bryce Youngs. And so it's this card right here that if you're watching with us online, it's this card versus this card, and we're going to go ahead and do two of these versus one of these. Okay, so I don't like what the Pistons are doing, and I don't think that Cade Cunningham is going to go anywhere in the next 5 days or something like this. I think Cade Cunningham is going to continue to be a Piston in the next 5 days. So with that being said, I think that this card is not on its way up. I think it's either stagnant or on its way down. Even in the short term and the long term. Maybe in a year or two this is different, but this is going to take some time for Cade Cunningham, even though I still like him as a player. I know that Paul is from Detroit, so maybe he would feel a little bit differently, and maybe he has some insight on what the Pistons are doing. But from my perspective, hard pass on this. And that's not because I really love this Bryce Young card either. That's what I just really don't like, this Cade Cunningham card. And I don't think I would touch this Cade with any of my money, even if it was $50. So what's your opinion here?
Completely agree. I couldn't agree any more than you've just completely nailed exactly the sentiment that everybody should approach this card with. It's at an all-time high. I was looking at the data. And that card was in the 170 to 220 range just a few months ago. So obviously it's spiking because of his own court performance, but they're still losing. That team is not good, unfortunately. So yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, I think at one point last year, last NBA season, I was like, Cade Cunningham is worth a look because of how talented he is and his usage rate. But then once like his prices were already up, it was just like, well, it's not really worth it anymore to me because his prices are already up. And so it's just like, and even if like Jim Bob says that it's over 500 already, like that's even worse for me. He said the Pistons are over 500. Yeah, but they're not doing anything. They're not going to make a run. They're like, even if they're over 500, this is a boo-boo Eastern team, and they're only over 500 because there's a lot of boo-boo Eastern teams out here. So if this team was in the West, they'd be terrible. So we'll just keep going. The next one is back to you. You're going to make the first argument on this. So we're going to do, this is a Brock Purdy PSA 10 last sold for $450 on market movers. So we're going to let's do 2 of these against 2 of these. So this has a $550 price tag on this specific card on eBay, but this last sold for $450 according to market movers. So $170 I'll give you 2 of them. You know what? I'll give you 3 of them. We'll go 470 versus 470 versus 450, and rough math. That's rough table math. Back to my not having a math degree here. And then, so what are you picking? Where are you going?
Man, Brock had a year last year, didn't he? it was an interesting season for the 49ers, especially with the amount of talent they had. I can't come to grips with spending $450 on one card with a team that looked like it was going to implode. So weirdly enough, I never thought I'd say this. I'm going to take 3 Bryce Youngs.
I'm saying I think the same thing for me, dude. Like I'm looking at this. If you took the price tags off of both of these, and if you were just like, which one of them is going to be worth more percentage wise in the future, I would say, well, Bryce Young probably is a little riskier asset, I would think, but like, I don't even know, actually. Like, they're both risky assets because of the way that their teams are, and one of them is probably on its way up, and one of them may be on its way down, depending on how the offseason goes. And Brock Purdy still is Mr. Irrelevant. So, like, that's in his game. Like this is the first pick versus the last pick of the NFL draft. And I'm looking at this Bryce Young card thinking, surely that goes up in percentage wise higher than the percentage of Bryce Young will go up. And I think Bryce Young would be the safer play, but also it's way more money invested. I don't know, man. This is a really tough one. I think this one is way tougher than I even think it was off the rip. I think how this is boiled down is, I think this is a pretty good gauntlet here. So, the fact of the matter is, I think if I have $600, I'm going to spend it completely differently than both of these cards. But, I don't know. I think give me the Bryce Young. We'll roll the dice, baby. Come on. Let's see how the Panthers go in the offseason. And who knows, dude? The 49ers, they knew they were going to have struggles coming into this year by not being able to pay everybody. And now the injuries, and then even worse, like it just fell apart. They literally had a player get shot, and then he was like, it went even worse. Off the field and on the field, it was just a bad call for them. So not even really their fault. They just imploded, man. It was just like, oh my goodness. So yeah, that's gonna do it for our gauntlet today. We're gonna go Bryce Young all the way to the end, which I did not expect. I wonder if
3 Bryce Youngs.
Yeah, 3 Bryce Youngs. I wonder if Paul's on the other end of the line just going, no, you idiots! What are you doing? There's probably some massive thing that we are forgetting here or something. But I just can't feel positive going against 2 or 3 Bryce Youngs against a Cade Cunningham. And I think 3 Bryce Youngs on 1 Brock Purdy. And when you've got that much money tied into 1 Brock Purdy, I think that one makes sense to me, and I feel pretty confident about that take. So, all right, we've got about 15 minutes left here, and I want to get to some of our stuff. Let's go. I'll give you the choice here, Joe. Do you want to talk about wins and losses of your recent plays, or do you want to talk about a vintage play of the month?
Vintage play of the month.
Okay, let's go vintage play of the month. This is a cool segment that I don't know if we've actually rolled this out as an official segment yet. I don't remember the last time we've done this. So this might be the first time that we've talked about a vintage play of the month. And I think I got a pretty good one, but I can't wait to hear yours. Vintage, let's just go ahead and define vintage really quick. For the fact, or for the sake of this argument, for me, and I don't know what you would say because I don't know how far in age we are apart, but I can't imagine that it's that much. But I would say vintage for me would be anything before 85. I would say 85 and earlier is still quote unquote modern card, because I think like I'm not one of the people that would say a vintage card is an 89 or an 86 Fleer. Like I'm like that's not really. I mean, that's like almost junk wax era, and that's not vintage for me. I don't know. What is your thought on that?
Well, I like to approach it as before I was born. So anything 82 and before is vintage. I'm not vintage. So
okay, so we're kind of in the same boat here. It would have to have been 92 and before for me. So I'm 10 years younger than you. But who's counting? Who's counting? And so I think the junk wax era right before I was born and like the late 80s stuff was still relevant, I think, in my mind. And maybe that's just because it was like a big shift in the card hobby happened in that era of cards. And so I consider before that way lower pop counts. And so I would consider that part a really big part of vintage cards is how many of the pop count difference. That's where I really think that it differs. And so I'm willing to go before 85. You'll say before 82. Let's just say before 82. How about that? So
sounds good.
Go ahead and give me your card because I see that it is a 70s card, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. So it's a 1971 Topps Terry Bradshaw rookie. What I'm actually chasing right now is any of the SGC 7s, SGC 75s. That are for the 7s around $600 buy-in, and for the 75s around $750 to $775 buy-in, with the intention of crossing over. Mainly because if I did cross over, let's just say let's go with the 7.5. That's a $765 last sale for the buy-in. If I was to cross that over to PSA. And it actually went down a half a grade to a PSA 7. Last sold on a PSA 7 was $995. So that would be, what is that? $200? Yeah, $230 increase in price right off the bat, not including the fees. If it dropped down to a PSA 6, I'd be losing quite a bit. It's $425 at a PSA 6. Which would be, a $340 loss. If it was a PSA 6.5, it would essentially just be a wash. If it went up in grade to, let's say, because we do have half grades in PSA below 9s, if it was a PSA 7.5, that's a $1,260 card, $500 plus profit, and then an 8. If it ever, for whatever reason, made an 8, it would be $3,250, which is a $2,500 profit. So this isn't a quick play. This isn't one that I just find one on eBay and I'm like, yeah, click buy. And these are ones that I want to see at shows. I want to pick up, actually see and inspect them through the cases, make sure that the edges, corners, centering, everything looks good, because it's a pretty large investment. And I want to be sure that when I do cross it over, I'm not going to get the lesser grade. I'm going to hopefully get the higher grade.
Yeah, I think SGC is. We talked about this on Thursday in our premium pod, but we talked about it being gradable, a respectable graded company with vintage cards, and I think me and Aram had a long discussion last year at the National with a prime vintage dealer, and he was talking about how online comps are super hard with vintage cards because within a grade, you can actually have a lot of variance in pricing because of the way the card looks. So like a card could be a PSA 4 and a PSA 4, but one can have way more eye appeal and centering, where one can have, a stain on it, and you don't necessarily can't really tell it as a stain on it, but it takes it down a worse grade, even though the other one has the eye appeal. So Ziggy says you crack these and cross them over, correct? That's what you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah. I would say that's a strategy to do for sure. If you can get your hands on it, definitely, like Joe was saying, you want to do this one kind of at a show. But there is a large variance within comping. Things are really hard. One, because pop counts are pretty low on these cards. There's a rarity element to them. And also, usually vintage dealers have held them for a long time. They're not really ready for them to go out of their hands, So every vintage card that I've done in person, I've always had to pay a way premium on, because it's like this old guy that's had it for like 60 years, and he's like, "Nah, I pulled it myself," and that's not true, but he's said it. So, but my card, I like your card, by the way. And I like the Terry Bradshaw element. He's still in the media. I think that's a good, selling strategy with a guy that's still relevant. My guy is still relevant because he's the name when you look at vintage cards, and that's Mickey Mantle. When I think Mickey Mantle, I think vintage cards. And when I think vintage cards, I think Mickey Mantle. I know there's other guys out there, and there's other things, and there's Jordans, all this kind of stuff. But to me, a vintage card is Mickey Mantle. There's no other thing out there that is a vintage card in my head. And so when I go up to vintage card dealers, I expect just to see everything Mickey, and obviously there's more players out there. You've got all these crazy ones, and the Bob Gibson pink sticks out in my mind. But in the same time, the Mickey Mantle, I think, is for me the card that is pursuable and one that I want. And so when I look at a vintage card that is achievable, not only for me, but also just cool, I think of the 1966 Topps card, which is one of Mickey's last investable cards when you look at his cards. The reason I've picked this one is over the last, and I'll bring up some data here just to show, these are a PSA 1, 2.5, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of this is chart work over the last 365 days of this card. You see that it's pretty stable. It's going up and down, but most of them are down 10 to 15%, except for, interestingly, a 2.5 sold recently for 178 when the 3 is last sold for 150. Now, what does that mean for a 153? I think you can get a 3 right now for a good bargain. That's the one that I have highest on my list here, and it is the orange. That if you're looking at this chart, it's down 14%, but I would be looking at a Mickey Mantle PSA 3 because you can comp it right at a PSA 2.5 that's already sold for $28 more than a PSA 3. Now, obviously, this has a lot to do with eye appeal, which is what I just talked about. But as far as, and people would also ask, Kendall, why are you picking a 66 Mantle? Mickey Mantle had 48 investable cards labeled as vintage, which is before 1996 for this argument, because he did have other cards coming back into sets starting in 1996. So when we look at investable vintage Mickey Mantle cards, I'm saying anything, well, we talked pre-82, but there's post-82 cards of Mickey Mantles that have been reprints. And so I'm going to say any Mickey Mantle card that was before 1996, there's 48 different parallels or different years of cards that you can buy. So if you're going to complete the entire vintage checklist of Mickey Mantle, you have 48 cards. But 66 is later on in that checklist. I think it's a well-centered card. It's still Mickey, obviously. He doesn't look aged in the card, and it's a play on his original stance in some of his original cards. And so it's still Mickey. I've had a couple of 66 Mickeys and I like them. Plus, if you can automatically look at this data and see a 2.5 is selling more than a 3, go buy a 3 and immediately list it for higher than this 2.5 last comp sale. Of course, where somebody can ping you is if you're in a discussion with somebody and you're going to be like, look, 2.5 sold for 178. I'm not going below 200. They're going to say pop count on a 2.5 is 207. Pop count on a 3 is almost 2,000. So that's going to be the argument that you're going to have to face. Hopefully they don't get that way. Hopefully they say, okay, this card has sold more recently around, this card has sold for 250 in the last 6 months. So you can get this card sold for 200. I believe it's a good one to look for. It's Mickey Mantle of all people. You never have to convince somebody to buy a Mickey Mantle. They're gonna look at it and they're gonna say this is a sweet card, and they're gonna pull 2 bills out of their wallet and give it to you. So that's what I'm going with. What do you think?
Yeah. So the play on selling, is this a hold? Is this a longer hold? Is this a quick flip? What is the intention here?
For me, the perfect strategy here for me was buy this around the comp that you've seen in person. So take a PSA 3 that you find at a table and say, this one sold for 150. I will do 150 or less than that. And if they say yes, you're not the last comp. So you don't want to put another 150 comp out there on eBay. So this isn't an eBay strategy. The eBay strategy would be buying one in person somehow, or off of a Facebook group potentially, or something like this, where it's not going to leave a comp, and then you put yours up for 200. That's immediately. It is a graded to graded play here, and it's going to be, if you can find one around that $150 mark and immediately put it up for 200 without leaving another comp, I think that's the strategy here.
Love it. Love it. That's exactly what I was thinking. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
And the 66 is obtainable. There's a lot of them out there. A lot of them. There's not a ton of them, but I personally have had 3 at one time of this card. So I had a PSA 6, I had a PSA 1, and I had a PSA 4. And so I ended up moving out of all of those around 2021. But still, this is a card that I would buy back into pretty easily just because it's Mickey Mantle. So
not a bad card to get into.
Not a bad card at all. Okay, let's wrap up our segments today off of a wins and losses of our current situation. Joe, why don't you go first, because you haven't talked very much on, I mean, of course you have commented in a lot of our shows, and you've got your DNA has come through our shows because we use a lot of what you say on the show, but you haven't actually vocalized some of your wins and losses in to people on the show. And I know personally from talking to you and being friends with you over the last couple of years, you love, like, you just are so good at making wins in the sports card world. I want people to know, what are some smart moves you're making recently?
All right. So we were talking about the Aaron Fox earlier. In December, I was at a show in Chantilly, Virginia, and there was a seller that had a raw donruss optic fast break auto of De'Aaron Fox, his rookie fast break auto, for 125. Actually, he had it at 175, but I talked him down because it was raw. I noticed that there was some dinging in the conditioning. It wasn't gradable. So I did talk him down. I got it down to $125, and I held it because I had heard at that point they were already rumblings of him getting traded in the NBA season. Well, what happened last night? He got traded, and I had it already listed. It was buy it now at $250, and somebody clicked that buy it now. Didn't even send an offer, so I doubled up on the De'Aaron Fox, $125 investment to a $250 back in my pocket. It was pretty good. Pretty good night for me. I wish I would have bought a few more, but hindsight, right?
So what did you get after taxes here?
After taxes, I ended up with $117.12.
Profit,
yeah.
Nice. I was like, wait, it took you sold for a loss after taxes?
No.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah, $117.12 profit. Yeah,
that's sick, bro. On a 60-day, actually, less than 60-day flip of this card. That's a big win. I love that. Risky, I mean, quote unquote risky play. Of course it worked out for you, but these are kind of plays that Mofa Joe is making. He's saying, I know the speculation, I've seen the smoke in the air, and I'm gonna buy these small ads of these players. And this isn't rocket science. He's going out buying a auto of a premium player that could potentially be moved. And this is how he's making his money. And he's going out and doubling the card value. Before taxes, he made 100% return on investment. So pretty good money here. And I love that move. So what's an L you've recently had?
So when I was at the Culture Collision, I had a handful of the PSA 10 base Prism Luka rookies come up to the table. And a lot of people trying to sell them for right at comps at about $170 a piece. And I didn't see the immediate upside in that. I noticed
nobody did.
I knew that he was kind of in and out of the active roster the whole season. He's not been super relevant this year. And then all of a sudden he gets traded. So, I missed an opportunity to really to make a lot more money. Last sale of one of those PSA 10s was $292 yesterday. So I had, I think, 5 or 6 opportunities.
The smoke was in the air for Fox. There was no smoke around Luka, which is why everybody was so confused on it. So this is a matter of this would have been something that you would have purchased. I really don't think this is an L. I see the L as not being you don't get profit off of this, but I think it was a smart no buy because the selling marker didn't make sense unless you were going to buy into Luka and hopefully he was healthy for a playoff run. They would have, they are still going to have a nice playoff run, the Mavericks, but Luka's obviously not going to be a part of that now, but you could have convinced yourself to buy that card on that alone. And I think this is honestly a W based on the strategy that you had. It's an L because you didn't get the opportunity to make the money.
Feels like an L. Feels like an L in here.
No. I get that. I have plenty of those as well, where you think about a play and then you go back and forth and you ended up not making the play, and then you could have walked away with a big winner. But there are also those same kind of things where you don't pull the trigger on sometimes. And I have a mentor that told me sometimes the best day in your life is going to be when you turn down somebody's $100,000. And so he's talking about like an investment in a business and stuff like that. But I think there are some times where the big strategies play out in the long run good for us. And so I still like what you have in mind. So do you have a buy for this week?
Yeah. I'm chasing Corbin Carroll first refractors raw. They're selling for like $11. And I mean, March, April last year, they were up in the $30 to $40 range. And obviously I'm going to be going after gradable copies. I don't have the data on the PSA 10s and 9s, but I know that some of the atomics and things like that I've seen selling for anywhere from $75 to $100 right now. But last year, March, April, they were well over 150. So I don't see how an $11 investment in a player like Corbin Carroll, who had an amazing rookie campaign, is a bad investment at all.
Yeah, PSA 10 of this last sold for $71, and a PSA 9 last sold for $18. What a disparity! Yeah. What crazy difference that is on a 9 to 10. But if you get a PSA 10 refractor of this, that's 7x on your investment. That's nice. So of course you have the grading fee, so not maybe a double instead of 7x. But I like Corbin Carroll. He had such a bad year last year. He cannot have that again. You've got to think he rebounds he had a sophomore slump as well. And we have a name for it, sophomore slump, because of how prevalent it is. And we know that players eventually recorrect. I think Corbin Carroll is the kind of player that's going to recorrect. I like this. Go ahead and give us your sell as well.
So those who don't know, I'm not only in the buying and flipping game for individual singles and things like that. I buy entire collections from people. I do a lot of consigning for higher end collectors. I do private purchases for lower end collectors that just want to get out. So I actually, this year I had acquired probably 6 or 7 different collections of NFL rookies, stars, parallels. And in that acquisition, I've got a lot of rookies, parallels, serial numbers of all the Chiefs, Eagles, stars. So what my sell is every raw, low to mid end rookie refractor serial number of key players on both teams. Just get them listed, have them up. This is your sell marker, obviously, being that the Super Bowl is this Sunday. Just get them up at auction, let them go. Just get rid of them.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. And so do you use any kind of scanning software, or you do this all yourself in manual eBay ads?
I was using
eBay ads.
Yeah, I was using Chronosio for a while, but I've scaled down to the point where I'm focusing more on selling the important cards in the collections and then selling off the bulk as a sale, outside of any of the eBays or what have you. So when I'm listing these cards, it's like 50 to 60 cards, and I'm doing them manually with my light box and a camera on my phone. So I don't need Chronosio anymore, but I have used it in the past.
Did you think the Chronosio fee just wasn't worth it, or you just weren't moving enough cards?
I was having to go in and correct a lot of the data that was being pulled from Carnozio's platform. So if I was going to have to go in and actually revise data, I may as well just do it from the beginning, is the way I felt.
Have you ever considered Card Dealer Pro? Just curious.
Yeah, I've actually met with those guys at the National, and they gave me their rundown. If I was to be selling, I probably sell 600 items a year on eBay. Majority of it is going to be graded. If I was to maybe scale up with the singles, the low-end raw singles, mid-end singles, it's possible that I would go that route. Yeah. Have you used it?
No, I've just done a lot of research on it this week, actually. So Turner and I were having a discussion about it earlier this week in person because we live down the street from each other. And so I was talking about like, hey, like we just were talking about, we had interviewed the Carnozio CEO one time on one of our shows, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago at the National. And then I had since seen an ad on my Instagram for the Card Dealer Pro stuff. And I know that there's some really, really cool versions in the TCG market that hasn't necessarily made it over to sports cards. Like there's some really cool TCG adaptations of, like, if they were to put the TCG software that they have into sports cards, I would immediately be like all in, just because of the data collection and stuff. It's just a lot more checklists that they're going to have to do. So I don't know if that company really does it to make sense, but I was just doing some research on it this week, and I didn't know that you had experience with it. So that's pretty cool. Probably something that I'll ping you about after the show, for my own research. But real quickly, my wins of the week, I have sold 268 slabs in January. So I have moved a lot of cards through the vault in January. Now, most of those were our raw to grade plays off of some of our for instance, that's all Panini Instant WNBA Rookie of the Year cards that we popped. That's the Jaden Daniels Tops Now that we popped. I had 40 of those. I had different Max Clarks that I'm selling. My biggest win of the week, honestly, is a Max Clark regular. I bought 16 PSA 10s from Crim in December. I paid $22 a piece for the PSA 10s, which was cheaper than grading fees. And basically that was like, I'm getting a $21 grade with a $1 card, and they're automatically coming back a 10. Couldn't be a better scenario for me. I bought all 16 of them from him, thinking that these were going to sell for around 30 to 40 to 50 bucks in March. I've sold 3 of them so far, one for 40, one for 42. And then get this, I have 5 of them listed as buy it nows on eBay. I have a 40, 45, 50, 55, and a 60. And then I just auctioned one of them. The auction went for $60, Joe. They could literally go out and buy my other 5 for $20 less if they wanted to. I don't know what's going on with people, but I did have one, and the buyer paid instantly, that sold for $60 on a card that I paid $22 for. So if all these start going for $60, I'm going to be swimming in it again. So just another good ad here is we knew that Max Clark was going to be investable, and it's not even March yet. Like, we haven't even really got into March, and I'm just like, I'm trickling these out, I'm sprinkling these over the next couple of weeks. And I've already made a $60 win on that card. So it cost me 22, sold it for 60. That's the kind of transaction I want to have 9 times out of 10. It's just a regular Bowman Chrome 10, and it's not sexy, but it's making me money, and that's what I like. So for sake of time, that's what we will wrap up with today. Joe, you got anything last? Usually Paul gives me a shout out to say whatever the heck I want. You want to give him a go Bravos or something like that?
No, shout out to Paul, man. Yeah, we definitely miss your voice here. So I'm sure we're going to get plenty of you on Friday and next week. So yeah, just shout out to Paul. Thanks for the opportunity to share my take.
Yeah, I love having you on the show. Mofa Joe, again, thanks for all you do with the DNA behind the curtain of helping us get this show off the table and onto a podcast. We love what you do. Thanks for being such a critical part of our team here at nooffseason.com. I know I can speak for myself and also for Turner, Jake the Guardian, and Paul Hickey, the Dave Ramsey of Sports Card himself. So I'm just going to keep calling him that until somebody brands it and puts it on a t-shirt, because I think that's just hilarious. All right, man. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks for being with us on February the 3rd for another episode of the Sports Card Strategy Show. We love talking with you guys today. Hope you got a good amount of data from us. We talked about a lot of different stuff, from a big NBA trade deadline to most recent releases to what it's going to look like for us potentially grading people like Mookie Betts and Max Clark going into the baseball season. Thanks for all of you that are commenting and leaving us reviews and things like that. We love what you do, and we'll see you later.
Thanks so much for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. If you enjoyed the content on today's show, there's plenty more waiting for you at nooffseason.com. Just go to nooffseason.com right now and get a free 30-day trial. You get our formula-based sports card rankings, sports card school, inventory tracker, the ability to grade with us, and the premium podcast where we answer an unlimited amount of your questions. Check it out right now at nooffseason.com. For everyone at nooffseason.com, I'm Paul Hickey. Thanks again for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. We'll see you again soon. Have a great day.